Men. And I used the term in a manly way again today. The frame for the Ratty Rod is back from the powder coat guy, finally. Usually he turns stuff for me in a week or 10 days. It took him 4 weeks to turn this around. Apparently the COVID, had half of his people out sick for the last 3 or 4 weeks. But anyway, it's here. Picked the frame up yesterday. Got the engine installed already. Got the oil tank installed. Generators on there. Got your front motor mounts hooked up. Carb is hanging on there. Hardtail's bolted back onto it. Next, we're going to put the front end on. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I've been excited about doing a Springer. But anyway, we're going to grease the balls. This is, of course, the lower triple clamp. I welded the stem into the bottom, so this is going nowhere. You may recall that because this was transplanted off of some other bike, the top diameter of the stem was too big to pass through the bearing cups and drop out the bottom. So in order to get this off the motorcycle, you had to take everything apart on the bike and then unscrew the lower clamp from the stem. Well, now, of course, that's impossible to do because it's welded. However, I've machined this diameter down so that it nicely fits a bearing cup and everything will pop out the bottom like you would expect it to. So, and as you may recall, or may not, I figured out I was going to do this after the frame went to the powder coat guy. And I had to cut some of the end off of this because I was changing the method of securing it to the bike. And I waited until I got the frame back because I wasn't sure how long this had to be, because I had to, stick it in the neck with the bearings and the cups and, measure how much was sticking out. And I'm glad I waited because I ended up taking off about another 3/16 of an inch from the end of the neck. So anyway, this is ready to go back in. So we're going to grease these balls up and put it together. Okay, that takes care of these balls. I'm going to grease the top bearing cup on the frame up and put the balls in it. I'm not going to let you watch that. I mean, you saw me grease these balls. How much fun can you have in a day, right? Okay, this is a little bit of a Chinese fire drill. Greasy balls down here. Grease in the bearing cup. I've got a bearing cup, greasy balls, and a bearing race on top with the dust cover. So we're going to shove this up in there. Hopefully not knock any of the balls loose. Now I got a finger full of grease. Top hat bushing. And there you go. Pretty much all there is to it. We're going to put the fork legs on it and keep on trucking. I'm going to snug this up just a little bit. Grease everywhere, of course. All right, we're going to shove one lower leg in. And we got the big pointy nut. And we'll shove the other fork leg in. And that takes care of that for right now. All right, so here's the next thing I'm going to put together. The forward legs. These are the old spring rods, and you probably could see how necked out this is right here. Bent, jacked up threads, rusty, corroded. These things are in bad shape. I made a pair of new ones out of stainless steel rod. And this is one part of the operation I really don't know what I'm going to do. How I'm going to put it back together again. When I took these apart, there was a fair amount of spring pressure on them. You know, when I popped that last thread off on the top nuts, you know, this thing wanted to go flying. I got a ratchet strap over here, and I'm going to see if I could rig something up to compress the springs so that I could get it back together again. Like I say, not quite sure how this is going to work, so I guess we'll figure it out together. Just FYI, that real worn area on that rod I showed you is where the rod passes through here. And there's felt washers. I presume that these are to be soaked with oil to lubricate that rod as it's bouncing up and down through here. But let's kind of stick it together and see how I might hold it. I've got an idea. This will work in principle, but I'm going to screw up the powder coat. Let me think about this a little bit more. All right, here's what I decided to do. I got a piece of tube, a piece of conduit over the other spring rod with a nut on it. I should just be able to pull that right up. Hopefully it'll pull up sort of evenly. I think that's enough. Well, one of them is on. Since these rods are stainless steel, I put anti-seize on the nuts. And of course now I got that anti-seize all over everything. All right. One more to go. Ooh. Huh. That's going to be tricky. Yeah. Boy, I don't see that. That's going to be a trick. Well, I got about 1 inch of threads on here. Man, if that happens, it's going to just barely happen. May have to rethink this a little bit. Stand by. All right, plan B. Actually, maybe this is plan C or D. Well, I don't see a easy way. I almost get it. That's as far as it'll go. Son of a bitch. All right, plan D, E maybe? I'll get a bigger clamp. Now the clamp is slowly walking off. Ooh, I have another idea. Ooh, that might work. I think I could get it. Man, that is close. The nut is on there. That was a giant pain in the gonads. Hope I never have to take that shit apart again. Anyway, moving on. We're going to put the forward set of legs on. If I could find them. Oh, there they are. This Springer is about the most poorly engineered piece of shit I've ever fucking seen. The fucking nuts for these tubes are just big enough that they won't clear the springs. Unbelievable. So when I put a wrench on this and tighten it up, I'm going to scrape all the powder coat off of this. Just by the nature of the beast, it can't be avoided. And believe it or not, this hardware is metric. 18 by 2 millimeters is the pitch on it. See, now this one clears the big spring. What a piece of shit. All right, let's get some rockers. All right, let's see if a rocker could be put on without generating any particular trauma. Looks like that'll work okay. Okay, the other rocker went on uneventfully. Let's see if what I'm planning on using for an axle will be long enough. And let's give the axle a smack or two. Yeah, that'll work. Cut it to length, put some threads on it, and that's all I need. All right, I'm going to tighten up all the bolts on this thing, and it's almost done. Okay, here's the axle I'm going to modify to use. Here's the axle that was in there. And you can see it's too short to get a nut on it. And what they did was they just squeezed the rockers together until they could get, 3 threads of a nut on the end of it. When I took this thing apart, some of the bolts were ridiculously tight. Some of the bolts were ridiculously loose. Some of the bolts were missing. These T-bolts down here that anchor the legs to the rockers were totally jacked up. Strip threads, the bearing surface for the little roller bearings was just horrible. I can't help but think this is going to handle a lot better than it used to. By the nature of it, it's probably not going to handle well. I mean, you don't expect something with the front end like that to handle well. The astutest among you may have noticed that I did not grease the little rollers that are in here. We'll take care of that now. And I got to think that as this thing is going down the road, if you keep this front end greased, it's going to be throwing little gobs of grease at you while you're going down the road. Apparently, I switched grease in the grease gun, and the brown grease is the old grease that was in there. The green grease is the new grease. So I flushed the brown grease out, so they've now all four got nice green grease in them. I guess I can't test drive it because I don't want to get covered with gobs of grease. We'll let the owner do that. Couple final thoughts wrapping this Springer project up. It is wrapped up. All the bolts are tight. It's set up as I'm going to set it up, I think. You know, if I own this motorcycle, which of course I do not, and if I liked Springers, which of course I do not, and if I really, really like this Springer, which of course I really do not, and I was going to keep this bike, which of course it ain't mine to keep, I think I would make these tubes over again out of stainless steel bar. I think that would look really sharp. There's stainless steel on these spring rods over here now, and that looks pretty sharp. Chrome, I don't think you can keep chrome looking good very long. And just FYI, these are tubes. They're hollow down to, I don't know, 6-8 inches above the ends over here. But yeah, this is interesting. Interesting, kind of fun. Making the parts is kind of fun. Figuring it out was kind of fun. A lot of work went into rebuilding this thing, though. A lot more than you think there would be. But you know what? I think for today, I've accomplished what I've needed to accomplish and wanted to accomplish. So I am out of here. Hey, support the channel. Get yourself a coffee cup. Get yourself a sticker. If you really feel like blowing wads of cash, and I mean like $5 a month, support me on Patreon. It helps defray the expense and time of producing these videos in the middle of course, doing actual jobs. Anyway, thank you all very much. We'll catch you next time. Bye.